Right now, while you're listening to this, someone in your exact position is making a decision that will change their life. And someone else? They're falling apart. Same pressure, same stakes, different outcome. The difference isn't luck. It isn't talent. It's mental discipline. It's the ability to stay calm when everyone else is losing their minds. This book will teach you that skill, not theory, not philosophy, actual techniques that work when the world is on fire. Because chaos is coming. The only question is, will you be ready? Chapter 1. Panic is a choice you keep making. Let's start with something you won't want to hear. Something that's going to make you uncomfortable. But it's the truth, and the truth is where transformation begins. You are choosing to panic. Not consciously, not deliberately. But you are choosing it nonetheless. Every single time pressure arrives, and you feel that wave of anxiety crash over you, that's a choice your nervous system is making. A choice you've taught it to make. A choice you've been reinforcing for years. Most people don't see it this way. Most people believe panic happens to them, like weather. Like something external and uncontrollable that sweeps in and takes over. They tell themselves, I couldn't help it. It just happened. That's just how I am under pressure. That's the lie that keeps you trapped. Panic doesn't happen to you. Panic happens because of you. Here's what's actually occurring. Your brain has been trained, conditioned through repetition, to respond to pressure with panic. And every time you surrender to that response, every time you let it run its course without interruption, you're casting a vote. You're voting for panic to be your default setting. You're teaching your nervous system that this is the correct response to stress. You've been running this program for so long that it feels automatic. It feels like you have no control. But automaticity is not the same as inevitability. Think about the last time you panicked. Maybe it was a presentation at work. Maybe it was a difficult conversation you had to have. Maybe it was a financial emergency or a relationship conflict. Whatever it was, I want you to recall the exact moment when the panic started. You felt it in your body first, didn't you? The heart rate spike, the shallow breathing, the tension in your chest. Then came the thoughts, rapid, catastrophic, spiraling. I can't do this. This is going to be a disaster. Everyone will see me fail. And here's the critical part. You didn't interrupt that cascade. You didn't step in and stop it. You let it run. You surrendered to it. You became a passive observer of your own internal chaos. That surrender, that's the choice. Now, I know what you're thinking, but it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like it's happening against my will. Of course it does. Because you've practiced panic so many times that it's become your default neurological pathway. It's the path of least resistance. When pressure hits, your brain takes the familiar route because that's what it knows. That's what you've trained it to do. But here's what you need to understand. Learned behaviors can be unlearned. Trained responses can be retrained. The pathway you've carved through repetition can be abandoned, and a new pathway can be built. The people who stay calm under pressure aren't genetically different from you. They're not special. They're not blessed with some magical stress immunity. They've simply decided, at some point in their lives, that panic is unacceptable. They've made the decision that panic will no longer be their response to pressure. And then they've done the work to make that decision a reality. Let me tell you what that work looks like. It starts with awareness. You cannot change what you don't acknowledge. You have to catch yourself in the act of choosing panic. You have to notice the moment when the cascade begins. The physical sensations, the racing thoughts, the emotional spiral. That moment of awareness is your intervention point. That's where you have leverage. The next time pressure hits, I want you to do something different. I want you to notice. Just notice. Don't try to fix it yet. Don't try to force yourself to be calm. Just observe the panic as it starts. Watch it like you're watching someone else. Say to yourself, there it is. That's the panic response. That's the choice my nervous system is making right now. That simple act of observation creates distance. It creates a gap between the stimulus and your response. And in that gap, you begin to reclaim control. But awareness alone isn't enough. You also have to stop the story you tell yourself about panic. The victim loop is the story that says, I can't help it. This is just how I am. I've always been this way. I'm not good under pressure. Every time you tell yourself that story, you're programming helplessness into your nervous system. You're reinforcing the belief that panic is inevitable and you are powerless. You're giving your brain permission to keep choosing panic because, after all, what else can you do? It's just who you are, right? Wrong? Think about the job interview where you blanked. The moment when the question was asked and your mind went completely empty. You stumbled. You fumbled. You felt the heat rise in your face. And afterward, you told yourself, I'm just not good at interviews. I freeze under pressure. That wasn't a failure of ability. That was a rehearsal of a panic script you've been perfecting for years. Or the presentation where you froze, where you looked out at the audience and felt paralyzed, where every word felt forced and awkward. You told yourself, I'm not a natural speaker, public speaking just isn't my thing. Again, that's not truth. That's a story that gives you permission to keep panicking because it frames panic as an immutable part of your identity. Stop telling that story. Start telling a different one. The new story is this. Panic has been my default, but it doesn't have to be. I've trained my brain to panic, and now I'm training it to do something else. I am not defined by my past responses. I am defined by the choices I make moving forward. That's the recalibration principle. Calm people have recalibrated their nervous systems. They've rewritten their internal response patterns one situation at a time. They didn't do it overnight. They didn't do it with a single heroic effort. They did it through consistent, deliberate practice in small moments. Every time they felt pressure and chose not to panic, even if that choice was imperfect, even if they only delayed the panic by 10 seconds, they were building new neural pathways. They were teaching their brains that there's another option. They were voting for calm instead of voting for chaos. You can do this too. But first, you have to accept the foundational truth. Panic is not happening to you. It's happening because of you. It's the result of thousands of previous choices, most of them unconscious. And if your past choices created this pattern, your future choices can dismantle it. You have a choice. Right now. In this moment. You can keep running the old program, or you can decide that panic is no longer acceptable. You can decide that the next time pressure arrives, you're going to do something different. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but differently. That's the key. Not perfection. Just difference. Because every time you choose differently, even slightly, even imperfectly, you're weakening the old pathway and strengthening the new one. You're training your brain that panic is optional, not inevitable. This is not easy. Your nervous system will resist. It will keep pulling you toward the familiar pattern because that's what it knows. That's what feels safe, even though it's destructive. But you are not your nervous system. You are the one who decides what gets reinforced and what gets abandoned. Starting today, you stop surrendering. You stop accepting panic as inevitable. You stop telling yourself the victim story. You start noticing. You start intervening. You start making different choices in the small moments so that when the big moments arrive, calm is already being built. Panic is a choice you keep making. Now, it's time to make a different choice. You've identified the problem. You've accepted responsibility. Now, let's examine why your brain is so quick to sound the alarm in the first place. Because the truth is, your mind is lying to you about danger every single day. Chapter 2. Your brain is lying to you about danger. Your brain thinks it's protecting you. It's not. It's sabotaging you. Every time you feel that surge of panic, the racing heart, the catastrophic thoughts, the overwhelming sense of dread, your brain is sending you a danger signal, a warning that something terrible is about to happen, a prediction that you're in immediate peril. Here's the problem. Your brain is wrong, not occasionally wrong, systematically wrong, consistently, predictably, reliably wrong about what constitutes actual danger. And until you understand this fundamental malfunction, you'll keep surrendering to false alarms. Let me explain what's happening inside your head. Your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for threat detection, evolved over millions of years to keep your ancestors alive in a world full of predators. It was designed to spot movement in the grass and trigger instant action. Run or fight. No thinking required. just survival. That system saved lives when the threats were lions, snakes, and hostile tribes. But your amygdala hasn't updated its software. It's still running the same ancient program in a completely different world. So when you walk into a performance review, your amygdala scans for threats. It detects the tension in the room, the serious expression on your boss's face, the uncertainty of the outcome. And it concludes, danger. The same alarm that would fire for a predator fires for a conversation. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your vision narrows. Your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, goes offline. You're in full survival mode. For a conversation, your brain cannot tell the difference between a lion and a difficult discussion with your boss. Both trigger the same physiological response. Both activate the same survival circuitry. That's the malfunction. Your amygdala is treating psychological pressure like physical danger. It's responding to social threats the same way it would respond to mortal threats. And because that response feels so visceral, so overwhelming, so real, you believe it. You believe you're in danger. You believe something catastrophic is about to happen. You believe the panic is justified, but it's not. Understanding this gap, the gap between real danger and perceived danger, is the first step to staying calm under pressure. Real danger is immediate and physical. A car swerving into your lane, a fire in your home, a medical emergency. These situations warrant the survival response because your physical safety is actually threatened. Perceived danger is everything else. The presentation, the deadline, the financial pressure, the relationship conflict. These situations trigger the survival response even though your physical safety is not threatened. Your brain treats them the same. You must learn to treat them differently. That's the key. Calm people have trained themselves to recognize when their brain is lying to them. They feel the panic signal and they question it. They don't accept it as truth. They evaluate it as data. My brain is telling me I'm in danger. Am I actually in danger? Is my life threatened? Is my safety compromised? The answer is almost always no. And when the answer is no, they override the alarm. They refuse to engage the survival response for a non-survival situation. You need to start doing this too. But there's another layer to this malfunction. Another way your brain lies to you. It's called the catastrophe amplifier. When you panic, your brain doesn't just sound a false alarm, it starts writing fiction. It begins inventing worst-case scenarios and presenting them as inevitable outcomes. Here's how it works. You get critical feedback at work. Your manager points out an error in your report, a legitimate, correctable mistake. Within seconds, your brain has escalated this into, I'm going to get fired. I'll lose my income. I won't be able to pay my bills. I'll lose my home. I'll be alone and destitute. None of that is happening. None of that is even probable. But your brain presents it as certain. That's the catastrophe amplifier at work. Your brain takes a single piece of negative information and extrapolates it into total disaster. It jumps from A to Z without stopping at any of the letters in between. And it does this so quickly, so automatically, that you don't even notice the leap. You just feel the terror of the invented catastrophe. This isn't prediction. This isn't preparation. This is fiction. Your brain is not a fortune teller. It doesn't know the future. It cannot see around corners. It's just a drama producer on overtime, generating worst-case scenarios to keep you hypervigilant. And you've been treating these scenarios as facts. Stop. Your brain is lying to you. Those catastrophic predictions are not real. They're not even likely. They're just noise generated by an overactive threat detection system that can't distinguish between actual danger and uncomfortable situations. So what do you do about this? You implement the evidence protocol. Calm people ask one question when pressure hits. What do I actually know to be true right now? Not what might happen. Not what could go wrong. What is factually, verifiably true in this exact moment? Let's go back to the work feedback example. Your manager says, there's an error in your report. Panic brain says, you're getting fired. Your career is over. You're a failure. Evidence protocol asks, what do I actually know to be true? The truth. My manager identified an error. That's all. One error, one report, one piece of feedback. That's it. That's the only fact in play. Everything else, the catastrophic spiral, the career-ending predictions, the total disaster scenario, is fiction. It's your brain lying to you. Train yourself to demand evidence before surrendering to fear. The next time you feel panic rising, stop, take a breath, and ask, what do I actually know to be true right now? Strip away the predictions. Strip away the what-ifs. Strip away the catastrophic extrapolations. Focus only on verifiable facts in the present moment. You'll discover something powerful. The present moment is almost always manageable. It's your brain's fictional future that's terrifying. Here's another example. You send an important email and don't get a response for 3 hours. Panic brain says, they're ignoring you, they're angry, you've offended them. The relationship is damaged. Evidence protocol asks, what do I actually know to be true? The truth, I sent an email 3 hours ago and haven't received a response yet. That's all. That's the only fact. Everything else is invention. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're thinking about their response. Maybe they haven't seen it yet. Or maybe 1,000 other explanations that have nothing to do with anger or offense. But your brain skipped all those possibilities and went straight to catastrophe. That's the lie. You have a choice. You can believe the catastrophic fiction your brain produces, or you can demand evidence. You can surrender to the false alarm, or you can question it. Calm people question it. Every single time. They don't accept panic as truth. They treat it as a signal to investigate. And when they investigate, they almost always find that the actual situation is far less catastrophic than their brain suggested. This is not about positive thinking. This is not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is about accuracy. It's about training yourself to see reality clearly instead of through the distorted lens of an overactive threat detection system. Your brain will keep lying to you. That's what it does. That's its default setting. But you don't have to believe it. Starting today, when panic rises, you pause, you ask for evidence, you separate fact from fiction. You refuse to engage survival mode for situations that don't threaten your survival. This takes practice. Your brain will resist. It will insist its predictions are accurate. It will make the catastrophes feel real and imminent. But they're not. They're just noise. And the more you practice demanding evidence, the quieter that noise becomes. You've learned that panic is a choice, and that your brain lies about danger. Now it's time to learn the single most important skill in pressure situations, the ability to create space between what happens and how you respond. Because in that space, everything changes. Chapter 3. Stop reacting, start responding. There's a moment between what happens to you and what you do about it. Most people never notice this moment. It passes in a fraction of a second. And in that fraction of a second, they lose everything. They lose control. They lose power. They lose the ability to choose their next move. Because they're reacting instead of responding. And there's a universe of difference between the two. Reacting is emotional. It's immediate. It's uncontrolled. It's your nervous system hijacking your behavior before your conscious mind has a chance to intervene. Reacting is panic in motion. It's what happens when you surrender the gap between stimulus and response. Responding is different. Responding is deliberate. It's measured. It's conscious. Responding is discipline in action. It's what happens when you claim ownership of that gap and use it to your advantage. Every time you react, you surrender control to the situation. Every time you respond, you claim control back. That's the key. The gap between stimulus and response is where your power lives. And right now, that gap is so narrow you don't even know it exists. Let me show you what reaction looks like in real time. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Within milliseconds, you're hitting the horn, yelling, tailgating them. Your heart rate is elevated. Your jaw is clenched. You're angry for the next 20 minutes. That entire sequence happened automatically. You didn't choose it. You didn't consider alternatives. You just reacted. Or this. You receive an email with criticism. Before you've even finished reading it, you're typing a defensive response. Your fingers are moving faster than your thoughts. You hit send, and 30 seconds later, you regret it. But it's too late. The damage is done. That's reaction. Fast, emotional, uncontrolled, and almost always destructive. Now let me show you what response looks like. Same traffic situation. Someone cuts you off. You feel the anger start to rise. But instead of surrendering to it, you pause. You take a breath. You think, they're probably late or distracted. This isn't personal. Getting angry doesn't help anything. You maintain your speed. You let it go. You arrive at your destination calm. Same email situation. You receive criticism. You feel the defensiveness start to form. But instead of typing immediately, you close the email. You walk away. You come back an hour later with a clear head. You read it again. You craft a thoughtful, professional response. You hit send. You feel good about how you handled it. That's response. Deliberate, controlled, and almost always productive. The difference isn't personality. The difference isn't temperament. The difference is the gap. Calm people have learned to widen the gap between stimulus and response. They've trained themselves to insert a pause, a deliberate delay between what happens and what they do. You need to learn this too. Let me give you a tool. It's called the 10-second rule. When pressure hits, when something triggers that initial spike of emotion, you count to 10 before you do anything. You don't speak, you don't type, you don't act, you just count. Slowly, deliberately. 10 seconds doesn't sound like much, but it's enough. It's enough for the initial emotional surge to begin dissipating. It's enough for your prefrontal cortex to come back online. It's enough for you to shift from reaction to response. Think about the email that enrages you. If you respond in 10 seconds, you're reacting. Your response will be defensive, emotional, possibly hostile. And that response can ruin relationships, damage your reputation, derail your career. But if you wait 10 hours, if you give yourself space to process the emotion, consider the situation, craft a measured response, you're responding. And that response can strengthen relationships, enhance your reputation, advance your career. Same email. Same you. Different timing. Different outcome. That's the power of the gap. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can't wait 10 hours every time something happens. Life doesn't work that way. You're right. Not every situation allows for 10 hours, but every situation allows for 10 seconds. 10 seconds to breathe. 10 seconds to think. 10 seconds to choose your response instead of surrendering to your reaction. And in most cases, that's all you need. The person who says something insulting to you at a meeting. 10 seconds to process before you respond. The unexpected bill that arrives. 10 seconds to assess before you panic. The mistake you make at work. 10 seconds to think before you spiral. 10 seconds is not about being slow, it's about being intentional. Fast reactions feel powerful in the moment. They feel decisive. They feel like strength. But they're not. They're weakness disguised as action. They're you being controlled by circumstances instead of controlling your response to circumstances. Real strength is in the pause. Real power is in the gap. Real control is in the ability to delay your response long enough to make it deliberate. Here's what you need to understand. Right now, your default setting is reaction. You've trained yourself, through years of practice, to respond immediately to pressure, to let your emotions dictate your actions, to surrender the gap without even knowing it exists. You must change your default setting. You must make response your new automatic behavior. And the only way to do that is through relentless practice. Every small pressure moment is training ground. Every minor irritation, every unexpected challenge, every time someone frustrates you or something doesn't go according to plan. These are not interruptions to your day. These are opportunities to practice response instead of reaction. Someone's rude to you? Practice the 10-second pause. Traffic is terrible? Practice deliberate breathing instead of automatic anger. Surprise expense hits your account? Practice assessment instead of panic. Do this once, and it's an isolated incident. Do this 10 times, and it's a pattern. Do this 100 times, and it's your new default setting. That's how calm becomes automatic. That's how response becomes reflex. Calm people aren't calm because they face less pressure. They're calm because they've practiced response so many times in small moments that when real chaos arrives, response is already their default. You have a choice. Right now, in this moment, you can keep reacting, fast, emotional, uncontrolled. Or you can start responding, deliberate, measured, conscious. It's not about your circumstances. It's not about what's happening to you. It's about the discipline to widen the gap between what happens and what you do about it. Every reaction surrenders your power to the situation. Every response claims your power back. The gap is where you win or lose. The gap is where calm is built or destroyed. The gap is where you prove whether you're controlled by pressure or in control despite pressure. Starting today, you practice the pause. 10 seconds, every time, no exceptions. When the email arrives, you pause. When the criticism comes, you pause. When the unexpected happens, you pause. You stop reacting. You start responding. This is not easy. Your brain will fight you. It will tell you that immediate action is necessary. It will insist that pausing is weakness. It will push you toward the familiar pattern of reaction. Ignore it. The pause is not weakness. The pause is where your power lives. The pause is the difference between being controlled and being in control. You've learned that panic is a choice, that your brain lies about danger, and now that the gap between stimulus and response is where your control lives. But there's something you need to understand. You cannot think your way to calm while your body is in panic mode. Your physiology comes first, and until you control it, your mind will remain at the mercy of your nervous system. Chapter 4. Control your body, control your mind. You've been doing this backward your entire life. When panic hits, you try to think your way out of it. You tell yourself to calm down. You try to reason with your racing thoughts. You attempt to convince yourself that everything's fine. And it doesn't work. It never works. You know why? Because you're trying to control your mind while your body is in full panic mode. And that's impossible. Your elevated heart rate is sending danger signals to your brain. Your shallow breathing is triggering more anxiety. Your tense muscles are screaming to your nervous system that something is wrong. You cannot think yourself calm while your body is telling your brain that you're under attack. That's the physiology first principle. Your body leads, your mind follows, not the other way around. Calm people understand this. They don't waste time trying to control their thoughts when panic starts. They go straight to their physiology. They control their body first, and their mind follows automatically. You need to start doing this too. Here's what's happening inside you when panic strikes. Your sympathetic nervous system activates. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing becomes rapid and shallow. Your muscles tense. Your pupils dilate. Blood flows away from your digestive system and toward your major muscle groups. Every single one of these physiological changes sends a signal back to your brain. We are in danger. We need to act now. This is an emergency. And your brain believes it. So even if you're trying to tell yourself, I'm fine, this isn't a big deal, I can handle this, your body is broadcasting the opposite message at maximum volume. And your body's message is louder than your thoughts. The body wins. Every time. Until you learn to control it. Let me give you the most powerful tool you have for instant panic override. Your breath. When panic starts, your breathing changes immediately. It becomes shallow, it becomes rapid. You start breathing from your chest instead of your diaphragm. This is called hyperventilation, and it's a self-reinforcing panic cycle. Shallow breathing triggers more panic. More panic causes more shallow breathing. The cycle accelerates, and before you know it, you're in full fight-or-flight mode. Calm people break this cycle immediately. They don't try to calm their thoughts. They don't try to reason with their anxiety. They go straight to their breath and force a system reset. Here's the technique. 4 seconds in. Hold for 4 seconds. 6 seconds out. That's it. That's the override. Breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold that breath for 4 seconds. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. Then repeat. Do this for 60 seconds, just 10 full breath cycles. And your nervous system has no choice but to down-regulate. This is not about relaxation. This is not about feeling peaceful. This is a forced physiological intervention. You're hijacking your autonomic nervous system and manually shifting it from sympathetic activation to parasympathetic activation, from panic mode to calm mode. The extended exhale is critical. When you exhale longer than you inhale, you activate your vagus nerve. This sends a direct signal to your brain. We are safe. There is no threat. Stand down. Your heart rate decreases. Your blood pressure drops. Your muscles begin to release tension, and your brain receives the message, calm. You don't have to believe you're calm. You don't have to feel calm. You just have to breathe in this pattern, and your body will create calm for you. That's the key. Your breath is the only panic override you can access instantly, anywhere, in any situation. You can't control your heart rate directly. You can't manually lower your blood pressure. But you can control your breath. And when you control your breath, everything else follows. The next time panic starts, and it will start, you don't think. You don't reason. You don't try to talk yourself down. You breathe. 4 seconds in. Hold 4. 6 seconds out. You do this until your body gets the message. This takes practice. Your panic brain will resist. It will tell you that breathing is a waste of time, that you need to act now, that there's no time for this. Ignore it. 60 seconds of controlled breathing is never a waste of time. It's the difference between reacting from panic and responding from calm. Now, let me give you a second tool, one that elite performers use constantly. It's called the physical anchor technique. Athletes use it. Surgeons use it. Military operators use it. Anyone who needs to access calm under extreme pressure uses some version of this. Here's how it works. You create a physical cue, a specific gesture or posture that you pair repeatedly with calm states. You do this so many times that the physical action itself becomes a trigger for calm. This isn't magic. This is classical conditioning applied to your nervous system. Your anchor can be anything: pressing your thumb to your forefinger, squaring your shoulders, unclenching your jaw, rolling your shoulders back, placing your hand over your heart. The specific action doesn't matter. What matters is consistency and repetition. You choose your anchor, then you practice it in calm moments. When you're relaxed, when you're at ease, when you feel good, you perform your anchor. You pair the physical action with the calm state over and over again. Morning meditation, do your anchor. After exercise, do your anchor. During a peaceful moment in nature, do your anchor. You're building an association in your nervous system. You're teaching your brain that this physical action equals calm. Do this 50 times, 100 times, 200 times. And then, when chaos arrives, when panic starts, when pressure hits, you perform your anchor, and your nervous system responds automatically because you've trained it to. The physical cue becomes a command, a shortcut, a direct line to the calm state you've been practicing. But here's the critical part. You must build your anchor in calm moments. You cannot create this association for the first time during panic. It doesn't work that way. This is prep work. This is infrastructure. This is you building the tool before you need it. Starting today, you choose your anchor, and you practice it daily, in calm moments, when there's no pressure, when you're already at ease. You're programming your nervous system. You're creating a physical trigger that will serve you when everything else is falling apart. You have a choice. You can keep trying to think your way to calm while your body is screaming danger. Or you can start controlling your physiology first and letting your mind follow. It's not about positive thinking. It's not about mental toughness. It's about discipline. The discipline to control your breath when panic starts. The discipline to build your anchor before you need it. The discipline to remember that your body leads and your mind follows. Calm people aren't blessed with better genetics. They've just learned this fundamental truth. You cannot have a calm mind in a panicked body. So they control their body first. They breathe deliberately. 4 seconds in. Hold 4. 6 seconds out. They do this until their nervous system downregulates. They don't ask permission from their panic. They don't wait until they feel ready. They just breathe. And they use their anchor. The physical cue they've practiced hundreds of times. They perform it, and their nervous system responds with calm because that's what they've trained it to do. This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is practical, actionable, immediate intervention. The next time pressure hits, you will not try to think your way out. You will breathe your way out. You will use your anchor. You will control your physiology and your mind will follow. Starting now, you practice. Every day. In calm moments. You breathe in the pattern. You perform your anchor. You build the infrastructure so that when chaos comes, and it will come, you have tools that actually work. Your body leads. Your mind follows. Remember that. Live that. You've learned to control your physiology, and that's powerful. But there's something else you need to know. Something most people never consider. The panic you're experiencing might not even be yours. It might be absorbed from the people around you, because emotional energy is contagious, and right now, you're probably infected with someone else's chaos. Chapter 5. The people around you are making you panic. Here's something you haven't considered. The panic you're feeling might not even be yours. It might be borrowed, absorbed, infected, because panic spreads like a virus. And right now, you're probably catching it from the people around you without even realizing it. This is called emotional contagion, and it's destroying your ability to stay calm. Let me explain how this works. When someone near you panics, when they express fear, anxiety, stress, or chaos, your nervous system picks up on it automatically. You don't have to be paying attention. You don't have to be in conversation with them. You just have to be in proximity. Their panic enters your system through mirror neurons, through unconscious observation of their body language, through the energy they're broadcasting. And your body responds as if their threat is your threat. Studies prove this. When someone around you is panicking, your cortisol levels rise, your heart rate increases, your stress response activates. Even if the thing they're panicking about has nothing to do with you, their fear becomes your fear, their chaos becomes your chaos, their panic becomes your panic. And you don't even know it's happening. Think about the last time you were in a meeting and someone was visibly stressed. Maybe they were rushing through a presentation, fumbling with slides, speaking quickly, showing signs of anxiety. How did you feel? Did you absorb their tension? Did your own stress level rise even though you weren't the one presenting? That's emotional contagion. Or think about the coworker who turns every deadline into a catastrophe. Who walks around saying things like, "We're never going to make it," or "This is a disaster," or "We're all going to look terrible." Even if you were calm before, their energy infects you. Suddenly, you start feeling the same urgency, the same dread, the same panic. That's not your panic, that's theirs. But you're carrying it now. The people around you are making you panic, and until you become immune to their emotional energy, you will never stay calm under pressure. Here's what you need to understand. You are not a closed system. You are permeable. You absorb emotional energy from everyone around you, and most people are broadcasting chaos. They're anxious, they're stressed, they're panicked, and they're spreading it everywhere they go. If you want to stay calm, you must build immunity. You must learn to be in proximity to panic without absorbing it. That's the key. Calm people have learned this. They can be in a room full of chaos and remain steady, not because they're cold or disconnected, but because they've built emotional boundaries that protect their internal state from external chaos. You need to build these boundaries too. Let me give you a framework. First, you have to recognize when you're absorbing someone else's panic. Most people never notice. They just feel anxious and assume it's their own emotion. They don't realize they picked it up from someone else like a cold. So you start by noticing. When you feel panic or stress rise suddenly, ask yourself, was I calm 5 minutes ago? What changed? Who did I just interact with? If you were calm before the interaction and panicked after, you probably absorbed their energy. That awareness alone gives you power. Because once you know the panic isn't yours, you can choose not to carry it. But awareness isn't enough. You also need boundaries. Here's the hard truth. You cannot stay calm while constantly exposing yourself to people who amplify fear and chaos. The coworker who catastrophizes every situation. The family member who turns every problem into an emergency. The friend who lives in constant drama. These people are panic accelerants, and if you're around them regularly, they will drag you into their chaos no matter how much work you've done on yourself. You have a choice. You can limit your exposure to these people. Or you can develop a mental barrier so strong that their energy cannot penetrate. Let me be clear, I'm not telling you to abandon people who are struggling. I'm telling you to protect yourself from people who are choosing chaos and trying to pull you into it. There's a difference between someone going through a hard time and someone who makes everything harder for everyone around them. The person going through a hard time needs support. The person who makes everything harder needs boundaries. You need to be able to tell the difference. And once you've identified the panic accelerants in your life, you need to limit your exposure. That might mean shorter conversations. That might mean physical distance. That might mean saying no to invitations. That might mean ending relationships that are toxic to your peace. This is not cruelty. This is self-preservation. You cannot maintain calm while swimming in other people's chaos. You cannot build mental discipline while being constantly infected with external panic. Protect your calm like you protect your health, because it is your health. But here's where it gets powerful. Once you master calm, once you've built immunity to other people's panic, you become something different. You become the anchor instead of the sponge. Instead of absorbing chaos, you emit calm. When everyone else is panicking and you remain steady, you shift the entire room's energy. Your calm becomes contagious instead of their panic. This is leadership. This is influence. This is power. But it only works if you've done the work first. You can't give calm if you don't have it. You can't anchor others if you're drowning yourself. That's why the boundary work comes first. That's why you have to become immune before you can become influential. Think about the last time you were in a chaotic situation and someone remained completely calm. How did their presence affect you? Did their steadiness help stabilize the room? Did their composure give you permission to calm down? That's what you're building toward. You become the thermostat, not the thermometer. The thermometer just reflects the temperature of the room. If everyone's panicking, it shows panic. If everyone's calm, it shows calm. It has no agency. It just absorbs. The thermostat sets the temperature. It decides what the environment should be and makes it happen. It doesn't react to the chaos, it regulates it. Right now, you're a thermometer. You reflect whatever emotional energy surrounds you. Someone panics, you panic. Someone stresses, you stress. You have no boundary between their state and your state. You must become a thermostat. You must decide that your internal state is not determined by external chaos. You must build the immunity, the boundaries, the discipline to remain calm regardless of what's happening around you. This is not easy. The people in your life who are used to you absorbing their chaos will resist. They'll push harder. They'll escalate. They'll try to pull you back into the old pattern. You must hold the boundary anyway. It's not about them. It's about you. It's about your peace. It's about your ability to stay calm under pressure. You don't need their permission to protect your calm. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to explain why you're no longer available to absorb their panic. You just need to hold the line. Starting today, you pay attention. You notice when you absorb panic from others. You identify the panic accelerants in your life. You limit your exposure. You build boundaries. And you practice being the calm presence in chaotic spaces, not by forcing it, not by pretending, but by doing the work, controlling your physiology, widening the gap between stimulus and response, refusing to accept panic as inevitable. You become immune to other people's chaos. And then you become the antidote to it. The people around you are making you panic, but only because you're letting them. Only because you haven't built the boundaries. Only because you're still a thermometer instead of a thermostat. You have a choice. You can keep absorbing everyone else's emotional energy, or you can build immunity. You can protect your calm. You can become the person who stays steady while everyone else falls apart. That's the discipline. Not just managing your own panic, but refusing to carry anyone else's. You've learned to recognize when panic isn't even yours, when you're absorbing it from others. Now it's time to address the hidden source of so much pressure, the desperate need to prove yourself. Because most of your panic doesn't come from the task itself. It comes from turning every challenge into a referendum on your worth. Chapter 6. Stop proving and start doing. Most of your panic doesn't come from the work itself. It comes from what you've made the work mean. You've turned every task into a test, every challenge into a judgment. every performance into a referendum on your worth. And that's why you panic. Because when the stakes are your entire identity, when every moment is proof of whether you're good enough, valuable enough, worthy enough, pressure becomes unbearable. This is the performance anxiety trap, and you're caught in it. Let me show you what this looks like. You have a presentation to give. The content is solid, you know the material. But instead of focusing on delivering information, you're focused on what people will think of you. Will they think I'm smart? Will they be impressed? Will I look foolish? Will this prove I deserve to be here? You've transformed a simple task, sharing information, into a high-stakes evaluation of your value as a person. That's not a presentation anymore. That's a performance with your self-worth on the line. And when your self-worth is on the line, panic is inevitable. Or this. You're in a job interview. You're qualified. Your experience is relevant. But you're not thinking about whether the job is right for you. You're thinking about whether they'll validate you. Will they choose me? Will they see my worth? Will they think I'm good enough? You've made the interview about proving yourself instead of assessing fit. Same pattern. Same trap. You turn every challenge into a moment where you have to prove you're worthy, competent, valuable. And when you do that, you create impossible pressure. Because now it's not about doing the work. It's about defending your identity. That's exhausting. That's crushing. That's why you panic. Calm people don't do this. They've detached their identity from their performance. They're not trying to prove anything. They're just doing what needs to be done. That's the key. They walk into the presentation and think, I need to clearly communicate this information. Not, I need to prove I'm brilliant. They walk into the interview and think, I need to assess whether this role aligns with my goals. Not, I need to prove I'm worthy of being chosen. Same situations, different frame, different emotional outcome. When you detach your identity from your performance, pressure decreases dramatically. Because you're no longer defending yourself, you're just executing a task. Here's what you need to understand. Your worth is not determined by your performance. Your value is not proven by outcomes. Your identity is not on trial every time you face a challenge. You already have worth. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to prove it. You just need to do the work in front of you. But I know what you're thinking. Easy to say, hard to believe. You're right, because you've spent years conditioning yourself to measure your worth by external validation, by results, by what other people think of you. That conditioning doesn't disappear because I told you to stop. You have to systematically rebuild how you measure yourself. Let me give you a framework. It's called outcome detachment. You cannot control outcomes. You can only control actions. When you obsess over results, whether you'll succeed, what people will think, how you'll be judged, you create mental chaos. Because you're trying to control things that are outside your control. And when you try to control the uncontrollable, panic is the natural result. Calm people focus exclusively on the action in front of them. Not the outcome, not the judgment, just the action. The presentation isn't about being brilliant. It's about clearly delivering information. That's the action. That's what you control. Whether people are impressed, that's an outcome. You don't control it, so you don't focus on it. The job interview isn't about being chosen. It's about honestly representing your experience and assessing fit. That's the action. Whether they hire you, that's an outcome. You don't control it, so you don't obsess over it. When you shift your focus from outcomes to actions, pressure drops immediately because you're no longer trying to control the uncontrollable. You're just executing what's in your control. That's the discipline. Not worrying about whether you'll look good. Just doing the work well. Not obsessing over what people will think. Just focusing on what you need to do. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. Being fully present in the action instead of mentally spiraling about the outcome. Now, let me give you another reframe. One that will change how you approach every pressure situation. It's called reps over results. Every pressure situation is practice, not judgment. The job interview, that's a rep. The difficult conversation, that's a rep. The high-stakes meeting, that's a rep. These are not moments that define you. These are opportunities to build skill. Calm people treat pressure situations as data collection, not self-evaluation. Did you panic during the presentation? That's information. That tells you what to work on. Did you stay calm during the conflict? That's progress. That tells you the training is working. No single moment defines you. The accumulation of reps does. You're not trying to nail every moment perfectly. You're trying to get better over time through repeated exposure. This mindset shift removes the crushing weight of perfection. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up. You just have to take the rep. You just have to learn from it and do it again. Think about an athlete. They don't walk into practice thinking, this practice will determine my entire worth as a person. They think, this is another rep. I'll learn something. I'll get better. That's how you need to approach pressure. Stop making every moment mean everything. Start treating every moment as another opportunity to practice staying calm under pressure. You have a choice. You can keep turning every challenge into a referendum on your worth. Or you can start seeing challenges for what they actually are. Tasks to be completed, actions to be taken, reps to be accumulated. It's not about your value. It's not about proving yourself. It's about discipline. The discipline to focus on what you control and let go of what you don't. The presentation is just information delivery. The interview is just a conversation. The difficult task is just a series of actions. When you strip away the meaning you've added, when you stop making it about your worth, the pressure evaporates. Because it was never the task that was overwhelming. It was the weight you put on the task. Starting today, you practice outcome detachment. You focus on actions, not results. You ask yourself, what do I need to do right now? Not, what will people think of me? You treat every pressure situation as a rep, not as proof of whether you're good enough, but as practice for staying calm, executing well, and learning. Did you panic? That's data. Did you stay calm? That's progress. Either way, it's just information. It doesn't define you. It just informs your next rep. This is not about lowering standards. This is not about not caring. This is about removing the artificial pressure you've been adding to every situation by attaching your identity to the outcome. You don't need to prove yourself. You just need to do the work. That's the shift. Stop proving. Start doing. Stop defending your worth. Start executing your tasks. Stop making everything about judgment. Start making everything about practice. You already have value. You don't earn it through performance. You don't prove it through outcomes. It's already there. Now you just need to do the work. Calmly, deliberately, without the crushing weight of having to prove something every single time. That's how calm people operate. Not because they don't care, but because they've separated who they are from what they do. You can do this too. But first, you have to stop making every moment a test of your worth. You've learned to separate your identity from your performance, and that's liberation. But there's still one more trap that's keeping you from calm. One that's harder to see because it feels like safety. You're waiting for permission. You're seeking validation. And that need is the silent cost draining your peace every single day. Chapter 7. The silent cost of seeking validation. You're giving your power away every single day, and you don't even realize you're doing it. Every time you look for approval before you act. Every time you wait for someone else to tell you you're making the right choice. Every time you need external validation before you feel confident, you're surrendering control of your emotional state. And when you surrender that control, calm becomes impossible, because you've handed the keys to your peace to people who don't care about protecting it. This is the approval addiction, and it's killing your ability to stay calm under pressure. Let me show you what this looks like. You're in a meeting. You have an idea. But before you share it, you scan the room. You look for signs of approval. You wait for someone else to validate the direction. You check for nods, for encouraging expressions, for permission. And if you don't get those signals, you stay silent. You doubt yourself. You panic internally. Your calm is now dependent on other people's reactions. Reactions you cannot control. Reactions that might have nothing to do with the quality of your idea and everything to do with their mood, their politics, their own insecurities. You've made your emotional stability contingent on variables you cannot control. That's the trap. Or this. You make a decision. A good decision. But immediately after making it, you start seeking reassurance. You ask people what they think. You look for confirmation that you chose correctly. You need someone else to validate your choice before you can feel settled. And if they express doubt, your confidence crumbles. Panic sets in. You second-guess everything. You cannot stay calm when your peace depends on other people's approval, because approval is unreliable, inconsistent, and often withheld for reasons that have nothing to do with you. Calm people have learned this. They've stopped seeking external validation for their decisions. They've stopped waiting for permission to feel confident. They've stopped checking for approval before they act. They validate themselves. That's the key. They have internal standards, internal metrics, an internal scorecard that determines whether they're on the right track. And that scorecard doesn't fluctuate based on other people's opinions. You need to build this too. But first, you have to understand the cost of what you're currently doing. Every time you seek validation, you train yourself to panic when validation doesn't come. You create a dependency. You teach your nervous system that you cannot trust yourself, that you need external confirmation to feel secure. And life doesn't always provide that confirmation. People are busy. People are distracted. People withhold approval for 1,000 reasons that have nothing to do with you. So you're constantly in a state of anxiety, waiting for signals that may never come. That's exhausting. That's unsustainable. That's why you can't stay calm. Here's another trap you're probably caught in: the certainty trap. You're waiting for 100% certainty before you feel calm. You want all the information. You want guaranteed outcomes. You want to know for sure that you're making the right choice. But certainty doesn't exist. Life is probabilistic, not guaranteed. Every decision involves uncertainty. Every action carries risk. Every path forward requires moving with incomplete information. And if you're waiting for perfect certainty before you can feel calm, you'll never feel calm, because perfect certainty never arrives. Calm people have made peace with uncertainty. They've accepted that they'll never have all the answers. They've learned to act on good enough information while others are paralyzed waiting for perfect clarity. Real-world example: entrepreneurs who launch imperfect products while perfectionists sit in analysis paralysis, endlessly refining, never starting. The entrepreneur acts with 70% certainty. The perfectionist waits for 100% certainty. The entrepreneur builds a business. The perfectionist builds nothing. Same information available. Different tolerance for uncertainty. Different outcomes. You have a choice. You can keep waiting for certainty that will never come. Or you can learn to act despite uncertainty. That's what calm people do. They make decisions with the information they have. They move forward without perfect clarity. They trust themselves to handle whatever comes next. They don't need 100% certainty. They just need good enough. And good enough is almost always available right now. But this requires something from you. Something uncomfortable. Something you've been avoiding. It requires you to trust yourself more than you trust external validation. Let me give you a framework for building this trust. It's called the internal scorecard shift. Right now, you're measuring your worth by external validation. Praise from your boss. Approval from your peers. Recognition from your industry. Other people's opinions of you. That's your scorecard. That's how you determine whether you're doing well. And that scorecard keeps you in constant anxiety because it's based on things you cannot control. You need a different scorecard. An internal one. Internal standards that don't fluctuate based on external opinions. Questions like, did I act with integrity? Did I do my best with the resources I had? Did I stay calm under pressure? Did I make a thoughtful decision with the information available? These are things you can evaluate. These are things you control. These are metrics that remain stable regardless of what anyone else thinks. When your scorecard is internal, external chaos can't destabilize you. Your boss doesn't praise you for the project? That doesn't change the fact that you executed it with integrity and gave it your best effort. Your internal scorecard still shows success. Your peers don't validate your decision? That doesn't change the fact that you made a thoughtful choice with the information you had. Your internal scorecard still shows sound judgment. The external validation becomes irrelevant. Nice when it comes, but not necessary for your peace. That's freedom. That's power. That's calm. But building this internal scorecard takes discipline, because you've been conditioned for years to measure yourself by external metrics. Starting today, you practice internal validation. Every time you make a decision, instead of immediately seeking approval from others, you ask yourself, did I make this decision thoughtfully? Did I consider the available information? Did I act with integrity? If the answer is yes, you trust that. You don't need anyone else to confirm it. Every time you complete a task, instead of looking for praise, you ask yourself, did I give this my best effort? Did I execute it to the best of my ability with the resources I had? If the answer is yes, that's your validation. You don't need external applause. This feels unnatural at first. Your brain will push you to seek external confirmation. It will tell you that your own assessment isn't enough. Ignore it. Your assessment is enough. Your standards are enough. Your internal scorecard is enough. You don't need their permission to feel good about your work. You don't need their approval to trust your decisions. You don't need their validation to know your worth. You already know these things. You just have to start believing your own evaluation more than you believe theirs. That's the shift. From external scorecard to internal scorecard. From seeking approval to self-validation. From waiting for certainty to acting with good enough information. This is not about arrogance. This is not about ignoring feedback. This is about building a foundation of self-trust so strong that external opinions become data points instead of determinants of your worth. You have a choice. You can keep giving your power away, seeking validation from people who may never give it, waiting for certainty that will never come. Or you can build an internal validation system so robust that external chaos cannot touch your calm. It's not about what they think. It's about discipline. The discipline to trust yourself. The discipline to act despite uncertainty. The discipline to validate your own decisions and move forward with confidence. Calm people aren't waiting for permission. They're not seeking approval. They're not dependent on external validation for their peace. They've built internal scorecards that don't fluctuate with other people's moods or opinions. You can build this too. But you have to stop waiting. Stop seeking. Stop making your calm contingent on something you cannot control. Starting today, you validate yourself. You trust your decisions. You act with the information you have. You measure yourself by internal standards that remain stable regardless of external noise. That's how you reclaim your power. That's how you protect your calm. That's how you stop paying the silent cost of seeking validation. You've learned to validate yourself instead of seeking permission from others. Now it's time to address the root of why pressure feels so overwhelming in the first place. It's not the challenge itself. It's the gap between what you're facing and what you're prepared for. And that gap is where panic lives. Chapter 8. Preparation is the antidote to panic. There's a reason you panic when pressure hits. It's not because the situation is inherently overwhelming. It's because you're unprepared for it. Panic thrives in the gap between what you're facing and what you're ready for. The wider the gap, the stronger the panic. When you encounter something you haven't prepared for, something you haven't mentally rehearsed, something you haven't trained for, your brain perceives it as a threat, an unknown, a danger. And that triggers the full survival response. But when you encounter something you've prepared for extensively, something you've mentally simulated dozens of times, something you've rehearsed until it's automatic, your brain perceives it as familiar, manageable, expected. And that keeps you calm. That's the readiness principle. Calm people close the gap through relentless preparation. They don't wait for pressure to arrive and then figure out how to handle it. They prepare for pressure long before it shows up. They've mentally rehearsed scenarios. They've developed contingency plans. They've trained responses until they're automatic. So when chaos arrives, it's not a surprise. It's a scenario they've already handled mentally 50 times. And because it's familiar, they stay calm. You need to start doing this too. Let me show you what preparation actually looks like. It's not just reviewing material. It's not just knowing the facts. It's mental simulation of the pressure itself. Most people prepare for the content but not for the pressure. They study the information but don't rehearse performing under stress. So when pressure arrives, they panic. Not because they don't know the material, but because they haven't trained for the physiological and psychological experience of delivering it under pressure. That's the gap. And that gap creates panic. Elite performers prepare differently. They don't just prepare the what, they prepare the how. Fighter pilots don't just study flight manuals. They simulate emergency scenarios in flight simulators until their responses become automatic. They experience the pressure, the chaos, the split-second decisions in a controlled environment over and over. So when the real emergency happens, their training takes over. They've already lived through this moment dozens of times. Their brain doesn't panic because it recognizes the scenario. Surgeons don't just memorize anatomy. They rehearse complex procedures, they simulate complications. They train their responses until they can operate under extreme pressure without their hands shaking. Special Forces operators don't just learn tactics. They run drills in high-stress environments. They experience physical and mental exhaustion. They train until their responses are ingrained at a level deeper than thought. This is the mental simulation technique, and you should be using it too. Here's how it works. You identify the pressure situations you're likely to face. The difficult conversation with your boss, the presentation to senior leadership, the conflict with a family member, the financial emergency, the moment when everything goes wrong. And then you mentally rehearse them, repeatedly, in detail. You don't just think about them abstractly. You simulate the actual experience. You imagine yourself in the room. You feel the pressure rising. You visualize the challenge unfolding. And then you practice staying calm and executing your response. You do this so many times that your brain begins to treat the simulation like real experience. When the actual moment arrives, your brain says, "I've done this before. I know how to handle this." And because it feels familiar instead of foreign, you stay calm. That's the key. Familiarity reduces threat perception, and reduced threat perception reduces panic. Right now, you're probably not doing this. You're probably avoiding thinking about stressful scenarios because thinking about them feels uncomfortable. But that avoidance is creating the gap, and the gap is creating your panic. You need to close the gap, and the only way to close it is through mental preparation. Starting today, you spend time mentally rehearsing the pressure situations you know are coming. The difficult conversation? Rehearse it 10 times in your mind. Visualize yourself staying calm. Practice your breathing. Imagine different ways the conversation could go and how you'll respond to each one. The presentation? Don't just know your slides. Mentally simulate standing in front of the audience. Feel the pressure. Experience the nervousness. And practice maintaining composure through it. The emergency scenario? Don't wait for it to happen. Imagine it now. Walk through your response. Visualize yourself handling it calmly. Build the neural pathways before you need them. This is not pessimism. This is not negative thinking. This is strategic preparation. You're not manifesting disaster. You're building capacity to handle it if it comes. And here's what happens. When you've mentally rehearsed something 50 times, the real experience becomes less overwhelming. Because your brain has already processed it. It's no longer shocking or foreign, it's expected. Now let me give you another principle, one that separates those who stay calm from those who crumble. It's called the over-preparation advantage. Most people prepare just enough to meet the expected challenge. They prepare for a level 5 difficulty because that's what they think they'll face. But life doesn't always deliver level 5. Sometimes it delivers level 8. And when it does, the person who prepared for level 5 panics. Calm people prepare for level 10. Always. They prepare beyond what they think they'll need. They build capacity and reserve. They train for scenarios more difficult than what they expect to encounter. So when they face level 6 or 7 or even 8, they stay calm, because they prepared for worse. Real-world example, the presentation. Most people memorize their opening and rely on slides for the rest. That's level 5 preparation. But what happens if the technology fails? What happens if someone asks a challenging question in the first 30 seconds? What happens if you blank on a key point? Level 5 preparation collapses under level 7 pressure. Level 10 preparation looks different. You've memorized your opening 5 different ways. You've rehearsed the entire presentation without slides. You've anticipated 20 possible questions and prepared responses for each. You've practiced delivering it while tired, stressed, and distracted. Now, when technology fails or someone challenges you or you momentarily blank, you don't panic. Because you prepared for all of that. You have capacity in reserve. That margin, that gap between what you prepared for and what you actually face, that's where calm lives. You have a choice. You can keep preparing minimally and hoping nothing goes wrong, or you can start over-preparing so that when things do go wrong, you're already trained for it. It's not about fear, it's not about paranoia, it's about discipline. The discipline to prepare beyond what's comfortable. The discipline to rehearse scenarios you hope won't happen. The discipline to build capacity you might never need. Because the alternative is panic. The alternative is being caught unprepared when pressure exceeds your training. Calm people are never caught unprepared. Not because life doesn't throw curveballs at them, but because they've trained for curveballs. They've closed the gap between what they might face and what they're ready for. Starting today, you do the same. You identify the pressure situations ahead of you, and you prepare for them. Not just the content, the pressure itself. You mentally simulate. You rehearse your responses. You practice staying calm under increasingly difficult conditions. You don't prepare for what you hope will happen. You prepare for what could go wrong, and then you prepare for worse than that. You build capacity in reserve so that when pressure arrives, and it will arrive, you have more than enough readiness to handle it. This is not wasted effort. This is insurance. This is the difference between staying calm and falling apart. Preparation is the antidote to panic, but only if you prepare for the actual experience of pressure, not just the content of the challenge. You've learned to close the gap through preparation. But there's one more mental shift that determines whether you stay calm or crumble, and it has nothing to do with the situation itself. It has everything to do with the story you tell yourself about what's happening, because the same event can destroy you or strengthen you depending entirely on how you frame it. Chapter 9. Reframe or remain trapped. The situation isn't the problem. Your story about the situation is the problem. Two people face the exact same challenge. One panics. One stays calm. Same circumstances. Same pressure. Same stakes. Different outcomes. Why? Because they're telling themselves different stories about what's happening. This is the narrative control principle, and it's the most powerful tool you have for staying calm under pressure. The story you tell yourself about a situation determines your emotional response to it. Change the story, and you change the emotion. It's that simple, and it's that powerful. Let me show you how this works. You receive critical feedback on a project. The feedback is legitimate. The criticism is fair. But now you have a choice about what story to tell yourself. Story 1. This is a disaster. They think I'm incompetent. I'm going to lose credibility. My reputation is damaged. I've failed. That story creates panic, shame, defensiveness, spiral. Story 2. This is useful information. They've identified areas for improvement. I can fix this. This makes the final product better. This is how I get better at my work. That story creates calm, openness, action, progress. Same feedback, different story, different emotional outcome. That's the key. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are at the mercy of what you make circumstances mean. And what you make them mean is always a choice. Even when it doesn't feel like a choice. Right now, you're probably running default stories, stories you've been telling yourself for years, stories that create panic, anxiety, and overwhelm. Stories like, this shouldn't be happening. I can't handle this. This is proof I'm not good enough. Everything is falling apart. These are catastrophic narratives, and they create catastrophic emotions. Calm people have learned to catch these narratives immediately and rewrite them. They've become ruthless editors of their internal story. They don't let the first story, the panic story, run unchallenged. They interrupt it. They question it. They replace it with a more useful narrative. You need to start doing this too. The next time pressure hits and you feel panic rising, pause. and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this situation right now? Just that question alone creates distance. It reminds you that you're interpreting the situation, not just experiencing objective reality. And once you've identified the story, you can evaluate it. Is this story useful? Is it accurate? Is it creating calm or creating chaos? If it's creating chaos, you rewrite it. Let me give you some examples of how this works in practice. You lose your job. Unexpected layoff. The panic story is, this is the end. I'm a failure. I'll never recover. My career is over. The reframe is, this is forced evolution. I was comfortable. Now I'm being pushed to find something better. This is an opportunity to reassess what I actually want. Same event, different frame, different emotion. You get harsh criticism from someone you respect. The panic story is, they hate my work. I'm not cut out for this. I should quit. The reframe is, they're giving me free consulting. They see potential and they're pushing me to reach it. This is how I improve. Same criticism, different frame, different response. You face a major setback in a project. The panic story is, we've failed. All that work was wasted. This is a disaster. The reframe is, we've discovered what doesn't work. This is data. Now we iterate with better information. Same setback, different frame, different energy. This is not toxic positivity. This is not pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is strategic reframing, finding the interpretation that serves you instead of destroys you. Because here's what you need to understand. Events are neutral. They don't come with inherent meaning. You assign the meaning. And the meaning you assign determines your emotional state. Let me give you an even more powerful reframe. One that changes how you approach every difficult situation. It's called the adversity reframe. What if pressure isn't the enemy? What if pressure is the training ground? What if difficult situations aren't happening to you? They're happening for you. What if every challenge is an opportunity to build the exact strength you need for the next level? This isn't philosophy. This is practical reframing that changes everything. When you see adversity as attack, you panic. When you see adversity as training, you engage. Job loss isn't devastation. It's the universe forcing you to evolve beyond where you were stuck. Criticism isn't rejection. It's free coaching from someone who sees your potential. Failure isn't proof of inadequacy. It's data for iteration and improvement. Conflict isn't disaster. It's clarity, emerging about what needs to change. When you reframe chaos as curriculum, you approach it with curiosity instead of fear. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift, that single reframe, transforms your relationship with pressure. You have a choice. You can keep telling yourself disaster stories. Or you can become a ruthless editor of your internal narrative. It's not about the situation. It's about discipline. The discipline to catch your catastrophic thinking. The discipline to question your default story. The discipline to choose a frame that serves you instead of destroys you. Calm people don't experience less adversity. They just tell better stories about it. They've trained themselves to reframe automatically. When pressure hits, they don't accept the first narrative their panic brain produces. They evaluate it. And if it's not useful, they replace it. Starting today, you practice this. Every time you feel panic rising, you pause and ask, what story am I telling myself right now? And then you ask, is there another way to interpret this situation? A way that preserves my calm instead of destroying it? There always is. Always. The difficult conversation isn't an attack. It's an opportunity to strengthen the relationship through honesty. The unexpected challenge isn't proof you're failing. It's evidence you're operating at the edge of your current capacity, which is exactly where growth happens. The criticism isn't rejection. It's someone caring enough to help you improve. The setback isn't failure. It's course correction toward a better path. Same events, different frames, different emotions, different outcomes. This takes practice. Your brain will resist. It will insist that the catastrophic story is the true story. It will tell you that reframing is denial. It's not denial. It's accuracy. Because the catastrophic story is just as much an interpretation as the empowering story. Neither is objective truth. Both are frames you're choosing. You might as well choose the frame that helps you stay calm and move forward. That's not delusion. That's strategy. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are at the mercy of the meaning you assign to circumstances. And meaning is always a choice. Choose meanings that preserve your calm. Choose frames that empower action. Choose narratives that create curiosity instead of fear. This is the meaning-making shift. And it's the difference between people who are destroyed by adversity and people who are strengthened by it. Two people. Same layoff. One falls apart because they've made it mean, I'm worthless. One stays calm because they've made it mean, time for a new chapter. The event is neutral. The meaning is chosen. Choose meanings that serve you. Choose frames that keep you calm. Choose stories that move you forward instead of keeping you trapped. You've learned to reframe adversity as curriculum, to control your narrative, to choose meanings that preserve your calm. Now we come to the final truth, the one most people never learn. Calm isn't built when everything's on fire. It's built in the small, boring, everyday moments that you're probably ignoring right now. Chapter 10. Calm is built in small moments, not big ones. You think calm is built in the crisis. It's not. You think you'll develop mental discipline when the stakes are high. You won't. You think you can ignore the small moments and then somehow perform differently when everything's on fire. You can't. Because here's the truth. Your response in the crisis is already determined. It was determined by the thousands of small decisions you made before the crisis arrived. Big moments don't build character, they reveal it. This is the micro-decision accumulation principle, and it's the most important thing you'll learn in this entire book. Every time you stayed patient in traffic instead of raging, you were building calm capacity. Every time you took a breath before responding instead of reacting immediately, you were training mental discipline. Every time you chose response over reaction in a minor moment, you were programming your nervous system for calm. Those weren't throwaway moments. Those were training sessions. Those were reps in the gym of mental discipline. And the cumulative effect of those reps is what determines whether you stay calm or crumble when real pressure arrives. You cannot skip the small moments and expect to be different in the big ones. That's not how your nervous system works. That's not how habit formation works. That's not how discipline is built. Calm is built in repetition, in consistency, in the boring, everyday pressure that you face and handle well. Think about the last time you panicked in a high-stakes situation. That panic didn't appear out of nowhere. It was the culmination of hundreds of small moments where you chose panic over calm and reinforced that pattern. The time you snapped at someone over something minor, the time you catastrophized about a small problem, the time you reacted emotionally instead of responding deliberately, the time you let anxiety run without intervention. Each of those moments was a vote for panic to be your default setting. And when the votes accumulated, panic won. Because that's what you'd been practicing. Calm people understand this. They know that how they handle the small pressures determines how they'll handle the large ones. So they treat every moment as training, every minor irritation, every unexpected inconvenience, every small challenge. They don't dismiss these moments as insignificant. They recognize them for what they are, opportunities to practice the exact skill they'll need when everything's falling apart. You need to start doing this too. The person who cuts you off in traffic? That's not just a minor annoyance, that's a training opportunity. Can you stay calm? Can you choose not to react? Can you practice the 10-second pause? The unexpected expense that hits your account? That's not just an inconvenience. That's a test. Can you assess without panicking? Can you control your physiology? Can you reframe the situation? The rude comment from a colleague? That's not just an insult. That's a rep. Can you respond instead of react? Can you maintain your emotional boundary? Can you stay centered despite external chaos? These are the moments that matter, not because they're high stakes, but because they're frequent. And frequency builds capacity. That's the key. You don't need dramatic situations to build calm. You need consistent practice in everyday situations. The micro decisions accumulate, and the person you become in small moments is the person you'll be in big moments. There's no switch you can flip. There's no emergency reserve of calm you can tap into if you haven't been building it daily. Starting today, you treat every pressure moment, no matter how small, as practice. Traffic delays? Practice breathing and reframing. Small disappointments? Practice outcome detachment and emotional regulation. Minor conflicts? Practice response over reaction and boundary maintenance. Unexpected changes? Practice flexibility and calm assessment. Every single one of these moments is building your capacity or destroying it. You have a choice in each moment. And the choices accumulate into who you are. Now let me give you the infrastructure that makes this possible. Calm people don't just react well in the moment. They have daily discipline non-negotiables, routines that reinforce calm every single day. These aren't luxuries. These are infrastructure. You wouldn't skip brushing your teeth for 6 months and then expect dental health. Don't skip mental discipline practice and expect emotional stability. The routines don't have to be elaborate. They just have to be consistent. 5 minutes of breathing practice every morning. That's infrastructure. 10 minutes of physical exercise. That's infrastructure. 5 minutes of evening reflection where you review your day and identify where you practiced calm and where you didn't. That's infrastructure. These small, consistent practices build capacity that serves you when pressure arrives. Think of it like this. You can't save money only when there's an emergency. You save consistently in small amounts so that when the emergency comes, you have reserves. Same principle applies to calm. You can't build calm capacity only when you're in crisis. You build it daily in small increments so that when crisis comes, you have reserves to draw from. 5 minutes of breath work every morning builds more calm capacity than any amount of panic management during crisis. Because you're building the foundation before you need it. Consistency beats intensity. Every time. The person who practices daily for 5 minutes will outperform the person who practices for an hour once a month. Because discipline is built in repetition, not in occasional heroic efforts. You have a choice. You can keep treating small moments as insignificant, or you can start recognizing them for what they are, the actual building blocks of your mental discipline. It's not about perfection. It's not about never having a bad moment. It's about the ratio. If you choose calm in 60% of small moments, you'll stay calmer in big moments than you are now. If you choose calm in 80% of small moments, you'll become genuinely unshakable. The accumulation is everything. Now let me give you the final shift, the one that makes all of this permanent. It's called the identity level shift. Right now, you probably see yourself as someone who panics under pressure. That's your identity. It's how you describe yourself. It's what you believe about who you are. And as long as that's your identity, you will keep panicking. Because people act in accordance with their identity. You need to change your identity. Stop seeing yourself as someone who panics. Start seeing yourself as someone who stays calm in chaos. This isn't affirmation. This isn't pretending. This is identity architecture. Every small calm choice reinforces this new identity. Every time you stay patient in traffic, you're proving to yourself, I'm someone who stays calm. Every time you respond instead of react, you're reinforcing, I'm someone who has discipline. Do this enough times, and it's no longer something you're trying to be. It becomes who you are. The person who stays calm isn't special. They haven't been granted some magical ability. They've just made more calm choices than panic choices. That's it. That's the only difference. And starting today, you make calm choices in small moments, every single time, no exceptions. The colleague says something irritating. You stay calm. That's who you are now. The unexpected problem arises. You assess without panicking. That's who you are now. The pressure builds. You control your breathing and respond deliberately. That's who you are now. Each choice reinforces the identity, and the identity determines the behavior. This is how you become unshakable, not through dramatic transformation, through accumulated micro-decisions that prove to yourself, over and over, that you are someone who stays calm under pressure. You have a choice. You can keep ignoring the small moments and hoping you'll be different in big moments. Or you can start treating every moment as training. It's not about the crisis, it's about discipline. The discipline to practice in small moments. The discipline to maintain daily routines. The discipline to choose calm over chaos every single time. Big moments reveal who you are. Small moments build who you are. And you're building yourself right now. In this moment. In every small choice you make today. The person who stays calm when everything falls apart isn't made in that moment. They're made in the thousand small moments before that moment arrived. Starting today, you build in those small moments. You practice patience. You practice response. You practice breathing. You practice reframing. You practice all of it, every single day, in every small pressure situation, without exception. That's how calm becomes your default. That's how discipline becomes automatic. That's how you transform from someone who panics into someone who stays steady no matter what. The time to build calm is now, not later, not when things get serious. Now. In the boring, everyday moments that seem insignificant but are actually everything. You've learned the entire system. You understand that panic is a choice, that your brain lies about danger, that response beats reaction, that your body leads your mind, that other people's chaos is contagious, that proving yourself creates pressure, that seeking validation destroys calm, that preparation closes the gap, that reframing changes everything, and that small moments build everything. Now there's only one thing left. You have to do the work. You now know the truth. Calm is not a personality trait. It's a skill. It's built through discipline, not granted through luck. Panic is a choice you've been making unconsciously, and starting now, you make a different choice. You control your breathing when pressure hits. 4 seconds in, hold 4, 6 seconds out. You do this until your nervous system down-regulates. You don't ask permission. You don't wait until you feel ready. You just breathe. You widen the gap between stimulus and response. 10 seconds. Every time. You stop reacting and start responding. You practice this in small moments so it becomes automatic in big ones. You prepare relentlessly so chaos finds you ready. You mentally rehearse pressure situations until they become familiar. You over-prepare so you have capacity and reserve when things go wrong. You reframe adversity as training ground. You stop telling yourself disaster stories and start choosing narratives that preserve your calm and move you forward. You stop seeking validation from people who can't give you peace. You build an internal scorecard that doesn't fluctuate with external opinions. You validate yourself. You protect your mental space from other people's panic. You build boundaries. You become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You refuse to absorb chaos that isn't yours. You stop proving and start doing. You detach your identity from your performance and focus on actions instead of outcomes. You treat every pressure situation as practice, not judgment. You practice in small moments so you're ready for big ones. Every minor irritation is training. Every unexpected challenge is a rep. You build calm through accumulated micro-decisions, not occasional heroic efforts. Every single day, you choose calm over chaos, response over reaction, discipline over surrender. This is not easy. This is not comfortable. But this is how you become the person who stays steady while everyone else falls apart. The next time pressure comes, and it will come, you will not crumble. You will not freeze. You will breathe. You will think. And you will act with precision and power. Because you've trained for this. Now go do the work. Your calm is waiting on the other side of discipline. I'm sure you found this helpful. Please subscribe to this channel for more self-help audiobooks. Thank you.